What was known to our forebears as Bahamtu was translated into English as behemoth, and in modern English is now known and translated as a hippo. Uyoba lived and witnessed the magnificence of this beast in its own habitat. This is clearly seen in the extract in verse 23. Hona yaisha kunahara la ihlafese yabodahlu kaya yakha yehla yarudana eloba yawe. Hona yaisha kunahara la ihlafese yabodahlu kaya yakha yehla yarudana eloba yawe. Hebrew, directly translated as, look, it drinks a river, not in haste. He trusted in that he swallows, that is, it draws and swallows. That's what the word says, that he draws and swallows. Yarudan, Jordan in English, to mouth his. This extract gives an answer to the issue of the habitat of this magnificent beast. One has to see it in action. Now the question is, what was the habitat of this great beast during the time of Uyob? Not millions of years before or after, but during his time when he witnessed and was inspired to write about this magnificent beast in its habitat, as seen from the extract. We know that Uyoba's era was around 6,000 years ago. If you look at Bahamtu's distribution, the historic distribution, we can see there that there is an hypothesis of the extinction, both the distribution and the extinction of Bahamtu. In this hypothesis from Britannica by L. Harbison and George W., it reads, hippos eventually reached Europe and Asia, though climate changes and overhunting by humans had exterminated all species outside Africa by the end of the Pleistocene epoch, which was 11,700 years ago. In other words, this is outside the era of Uyob, which was 6,000 years ago. In Europe and Asia, which includes the Middle East, there was never a presence of Bahamtu close to the time, even at the time of Uyob, which was 6,000 years ago. The extinction of, hypothetically of course, the extinction of Bahamtu in both Europe and Asia precedes the era of Uyob by about 5,000 years plus. The assumption that there were hippos roaming the Middle East during Uyoba's time are unfounded and lack evidence, even by hypothetical models. There is also the issue of what I call Bahamtu made-up controversy. There are two issues that are raised by people who assume knowledge, but what puzzles the most is that they suddenly are oblivious of logic, especially where Africa is concerned and its people. Here are some of the most common made-up controversies that distract from truth. The first controversy is the dinosaur controversy, where dinosaurs are implied. As we've indicated, Uyoba's era was approximately 6,000 years ago, and according to L. Harbison and all that claimed hippo extinction in other continents way precedes Uyoba's era by about 5,000 plus years. This therefore indicates that Uyoba was neither referring to a non-existent dinosaur nor an abstract hypothetical habitation model for Asian and Middle Eastern hippo, which Al-Habissin has indicated it's 11,700 years ago of extinction. Now, if we look at the dinosaur issue, those who call Bahamtu a dinosaur are in error in that, number one, dinosaurs are hypothetical creatures. Number two, Uyoba's existence is preceded by the existence of dinosaurs by around 94,000 years. Uyoba at this time could not have been conversant with this mystical creature. The made-up controversy number two is the analogy of the tail analogy. We know that analogies, similes, are imperfect and non-exhaustive. There are many examples of such in Bantu languages as well. For example, there is a likening of people with ants, rats, snakes. The features of humans to these animals and insects are way apart, but the likening of these animals and insects are based on many other things apart from the size. The issue here is the people who say the tail of Bahamtu is smaller, far smaller than the tree that is implied there, are in error, as what is being compared there is not the size, neither the speed, but strength. The strength of Bahamtu is indicated in a tail as it marks territory. That is what is compared to the tree strength and dominance, which is seen in the towering stem over the landscape. Both are dominating their environments through the movement of the tail, and as seen in trees, in this specific tree, through its movement. So what is being compared there is movement, graceful movement, not size nor speed, but the movement, the dominating movement, the strength that is indicated in the movement. It is not presumptuous, I believe, to say Uyoba was also referring to the visual aspect, the worm's eye view, not size, as can be seen in the pictures. It would also not be folly to presume that Uyoba was also referring to a specific tree found in the surrounding habitat of this beast, or rather a native tree to the habitat's landmass. Knowing, therefore, and understanding what the habitat was during his time and is presently, we can safely conclude that the cedar tree referred to was the so-called African pencil cedar, also scientifically referred to as Juniperus procera. Similarities are not really far-fetched either. This would then beg the question, is the land of Lubanen, Hebrew, Lebanon, English, the land of cedars, not east coast of Africa, Kenya and the surrounding areas? That's the question that needs to be answered factually and truthfully. What then is the conclusion of this matter? Bahamtu's habitat at the time of Uyoba, even 5,000 years prior to his time, was strictly located in Africa, as we have seen. Nara ya Rudana, Hebrew, Jordan River, was the river that at the time of Uyoba quenched the heat and thirst of Bahamtu, meaning it was also in Africa. This map paints the picture of the current location of Bahamtu, which location, of course, has held true for thousands of years. We know from Separa Kadesh, Hebrew, scripture sanctified, that the land before and beyond this African river, Nahara ya Rudan, Jordan River, were allocated to Banaya Yakubi. One can clearly see how the journey from Mizraim, Hebrew for Egypt, panned out. The wilderness between Mizraim and Nahara ya Rudan is evident. Thus, when Banaya Yakubi, Hebrew, children of Jacob, journeyed from Mizraim into the land where Yarudan is located, they were simply moving from the upper part of the Nile River to the source of the Nile River, or in modern terms, we could say southwards from Mizraim, Egypt. Doubtlessly, Sipara Kadesh in the book of Uyoba reveals the true location of Nahara ya Rudan, Hebrew, Jordan River. Haratsi Kunene, Hebrew, land of Canaan. Haratsi tsaywune, Hebrew, land of Zion, as Africa south of ancient Mizraim, the so-called sub-Saharan Africa. Ya barokeko ahaya, noaha tsadoka, hura hakedesh.